The letter I is obviously a letter, but it also is a word. The word I is a word that you and I use a lot. One of the challenges I'll give you this week is to see if you can pay attention to how many times the word I comes from your mouth. It's a lot. We say I a lot. I use the word I more than I should. It is so a part of how we live. There is a really big tension in the Christian life. Actually, there's several big tensions in the Christian life. If you claim to be a follower of Jesus, if you've been baptized, if this is the journey that you're on, then there is a bit of a battle, a bit of a tension between Jesus is Lord and I want. Jesus is Lord and I want. We want all kinds of things, and some of those things are good, some of those things are bad. But Jesus is Lord, and I want. This tension, this battle that goes back and forth between those two. Jesus has some pretty significant things to say about this tension. And what he has to say about it is hard to hear. It's not an easy message. It's not an easy teaching. Today is definitely going to be a to be continued. It's even labeled, it's a part one. It's half of part one, so it's going to be a couple of different more weeks. So I hope that you can come back next week, and if your schedule doesn't allow for that to happen, that you'll watch online, because you really will need the both pieces to get this, to have the full picture. Jesus addressed this tension between Jesus is Lord, or I am Lord, I am the Messiah, and the I that we battle with, this I thing where we always want to be in control and that stuff. It's so important that it is recorded 7 times in the 4 Gospels. Now, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are 4 different takes of the life of Jesus. They're written by 2 of them are apostles, 2 are not. There's only one miracle that Jesus performed that is in all 4 Gospels. Do you know what that miracle is? The feeding of the 5,000. The feeding of the 5,000 is recorded in each of the Gospels. All the other miracles, it's in some, it's in not in the other ones. But this teaching is 7 times. And it's in all 4 Gospels. When Jesus addresses this, he is the Messiah, yet there is an issue that we have with I. So I want to read from Luke chapter 9, verses 18 through 27. This is also found in Matthew 16, 20 through 28, in an extensive form, and other places and not so. So starting with verse 18 and verse 9. While he was praying in private, his disciples were with him. He asked them, "Who do the crowds say that I am?" They answered, "John the Baptist, others Elijah, still others that one of the ancient prophets has come back. But you," he asked them, "who do you say that I am?" And Peter answered, "God's Messiah." But he strictly warned and instructed them to tell this to no one, saying, "It is necessary that the Son of Man suffer many things and be rejected by the elders, chief priests, and scribes, be killed, and be raised the 3rd day." And then he said to them all, "If anyone wants to follow after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross daily, and follow me. For whoever wants to save his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life because of me will save it. For what does it benefit someone if he gains the whole world yet loses or forfeits himself? For whoever is ashamed of me and my words, the Son of Man will be ashamed of him when he comes in his glory, and that of the Father and the holy angels. Truly I tell you, there are some standing here who will not taste death until they see the kingdom of God." Now the key verse that we're going to look at today and next week is verse 23. "If anyone wants to follow after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me." And the way that I see that here, you can divide that really into 4 parts. There's the part where he starts off where he says, if anyone wants to follow me. Wants. If anyone wants. So who is open to follow me? Who has the invitation? Everybody has the invitation, but you got to want it. You have to want to follow him. Nobody can want it for you. Sometimes those of us that are following Jesus, we desperately want it for someone else, and we try everything that we can, and we drag them to stuff, and we teach them stuff, and we try to whatever, and we pray, and we do all of those things. But really, when it comes down to it, if you don't want to follow him, it doesn't matter. You have to want to follow him. And he says, if you want to follow me, and the wording here in the Greek is, there's all kinds of different ways that you can say that, and we generally do that when we talk about Christianity, to follow him. We talk about being a disciple. We talk about being an apprentice, and the word apprentice is probably the word that is the most accurate here. Jesus is saying, if you desire, if you want to be my apprentice, because what does an apprentice do? Apprentice follows the master. The apprentice does whatever the master says, not just in an understanding way, but at a very heart level. That's what an apprentice does. You could also say follower. We follow people, right? We follow people on social media. We follow people on Facebook. We follow people on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, whatever it is. But when we hear follow someone, generally what we think about is we think about content. You follow people for content, right? That's why I follow people. I follow for the content. I follow for the knowledge of what they have or the entertainment value they have. I follow on Twitter. I follow puns. It's just dad jokes. It's just dad jokes. It's great. It makes me laugh. This one was from Friday. I laughed out loud for maybe a minute. You want to hear it? Yeah. I've set it up really big, so I know it'll be disappointing. All the dads will get it. What do you call a monkey in a minefield? A baboon. That's pretty good. You're going to laugh later. You're going to go, baboon. I got a baboon, baboon. Yeah. But we follow people for content. Well, Jesus is not asking you to follow him for content. He's not asking you to follow him for because he likes that. He's really concerned. No, he's like, if you're going to be my apprentice, if you want to do this, you're going to have to follow me. And then he says 2 things that are really tough. Deny yourself and take up your cross and follow me. Now, a lot of times people completely get this interpretation wrong when it comes to the cross part. And sometimes people will say, well, this is my cross to bear. You ever heard that? All right, my mom has crippling rheumatoid arthritis. She got it when she got rheumatoid fever when she was in the 8th grade. She's dealt with it her whole life. And some people will say that that's her cross to bear. No, my mom would not tell you that. She would say, I have rheumatoid arthritis, and it's just something I've had to deal with all my life. But that's not the cross Jesus was talking about. What does Jesus mean when he talks about this cross to bear? We're going to talk about that in a second. Then he says, deny yourself. And that's really what we're going to spend some time on, because that part can be very confusing to what does it mean to deny myself. And then I'm going to follow him. He says, if you want to follow me, take up your cross, deny me, follow me. So that whole following part is pretty significant. If you're taking notes, the first thing to really focus on this morning is the cross is a call to die. If Jesus is saying, if you're going to follow me, you got to take up your cross, deny yourself. A cross is a call to die. There's just no way around it. That's the truth. Nobody ever shared the story about the time they were crucified. If you were crucified, you died. It was a killing machine. That's what you did. And Jesus is letting his apostles know. He says, listen, I'm going to be rejected. And I'm going to die. Now, he did tell them, listen, I'm raising again on the 3rd day. But you know what it's like. You know how it is sometimes when somebody tells you something you don't want to hear? Or somebody says something that you just like at the very core of who you are, you disagree with. And when you hear them say that, and they keep talking, but you don't hear anything else they said, you know what that's like? Yeah, you know what that's like. I don't know if they heard anything he said after he was going to be rejected, because messiahs aren't rejected. Kings aren't rejected. That's not what happens. That's not what they signed up for. And so they probably didn't. But he says, listen. You got to deny yourself. You got to take up your cross, and a cross is a killing machine. The cross is a call to die. In order to taste the resurrection, you have to go to the cross. I love that line in the expanded Lord's Prayer that we prayed last week. Lead us out of the bad lands. Lead us out of the bad lands into resurrection country. Well, the bad lands is the cross. And when I'm talking about going to the cross, I'm not talking about believing that Jesus died on the cross. Yes, that's important. Yes, that's a good place to start. But that's not what Jesus is talking about here. It's like you've got to be willing to lay everything down for me. You've got to die to yourself if you're going to follow me. Satan, if he could do anything, what he wants to keep you from doing is going to the cross. He doesn't care if you go to church. He doesn't care if you serve. He doesn't care if you give your money. He doesn't even care if you pray. But the last thing that he wants is for you to go to the cross. Because when you go to the cross, then you become an apprentice of Jesus. And then you enter into resurrection country, and you begin to live a life that is different from everything else. The cross is a call to die. Now, this part where he talks about deny yourself. We live in a world focused on self-fulfillment, not self-denial. You know that. You know that this is a big part of where we live. If you're a parent, you're trying to get your kids not to be self-centered. If you're a boss, you're trying to get your team not to be so self-centered. If you're a coach, you're trying to get the team not to be so self-centered. I mean, we live in a world focused on self-fulfillment, not self-denial. We live in a place where I is king. The Holy Trinity for most people is not God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. The Holy Trinity is me, myself, and I. That's the Holy Trinity most of us are living in. We are all about self-fulfillment. It's about what I want. It's about what I feel. It's about what I need. And it's about my rights. This is the world we live in. I was listening to the radio station coming in this morning, and it was on SOS or whatever it's called. And the song, the lyrics, the person was singing was about a revival, and I feel a revival, and I feel this. I was taken back, but probably because I was focused on what I was going to teach this morning. But I was taken back. How many times this person who claims to be a Christian who's singing this song it's filled with "I feel." I'm sorry. That's not the gospel. But that's not following Jesus. I feel. But it so dominates us. It so dominates everything in us. It's what I want. It's what I feel. It's what I need. It's my rights. John Mark Comer has written a couple of really good books, and he's written one, and I failed to write, and I can't remember it. It's down at the bottom of your notes. Somebody tell me what the book is. It's something about no lies. Hear no lies, feel no lies, live no lies, live no lies, live no lies. John Mark Comer. In the sermon that he delivered to his church about 4 or 5 years ago, it's on there as well if you want to go to a podcast and listen to it. He talks about 3 assumptions that dominate our culture along this topic. It's generally related to sexuality and gender and those kind of things, but it's not limited to that. It can be about politics, it can be about family, it can be about work, it can be about relationships, it can be about all kinds of things. 3 assumptions that we make, that the vast majority of people make. Here's the first assumption. No one or no thing should stand in the way of me getting what I want. No one or no thing should stand in the way of me getting what I want. Now, if you're going to do some honest work, that thought is ingrained in us. Nothing or no one should stand in the way of me getting what I want. Second assumption, if someone or something does get in the way of me getting what I want, it is a form of oppression. If I don't get what I want, for whatever the reason, then I'm being oppressed. Now, this is blatantly true in our culture. It is everywhere. Here's the third assumption. The first one, no one or no thing should stand in the way of me getting what I want. If something does get in my way, it's a form of oppression. And number 3 assumption, I can't be happy if I don't get what I want. I can't be happy if I don't get what I want. Sacrifice. Sacrifice is not something we know much about. Sacrifice is something that we rarely do. When we do sacrifice, it's usually about what I get from the sacrifice. Well, I'm sacrificing this, but it's so I can get this. John Mark, he uses the illustration of physical fitness. It's the closest thing that we see to self-denial on a mass thing in our culture is physical fitness. Exercise, going to the gym, taking the classes, eating correctly, doing all of that stuff, being buff, being whatever, physical fitness. Nothing wrong with that. That's great. That's healthy, absolutely. But why does somebody do that? Why do they make the sacrifice? So they can look better, so that they can feel better. See, it's really about them. It's not about anything else. Nothing wrong with feeling good, nothing wrong with looking good. But that can't be what the dominant thing is. The idea of denying yourself is heresy for most people. How could I sacrifice? A sacrifice? Who does that? What does that even mean? And when we sacrifice, we almost always sacrifice. The sacrifice benefits some way. I hear this all the time. You know, Marty, I love serving. It makes me feel good. Marty, I love worship. Makes me feel good. I just love going through these studies. Makes me feel good. I just love giving. Makes me feel good. Now, there is absolutely nothing wrong with any of those things, and there is nothing wrong with feeling good. But here's the question. What happens when it doesn't feel good anymore? You stop. What's your motivation? What are we trying to accomplish? To deny ourselves is heresy. It's not a message that sells. It's not a message most people want to hear. To deny myself. But here's Jesus saying, if you want to be my disciple, my follower, my apprentice, you must deny yourself and take up your cross and follow me. Not believe in me, but follow me. Do the things I did. Say the things that I say. Have the attitude that I have. Have the mind of Christ. Have the attitude of Christ. This is what it is that we're supposed to be about. But there's this confusion. Many of us have been in church. Many of us have heard this verse, but we don't know what it means. It's like we get confused by it. I'm supposed to deny myself. It's that tension. It's kind of like that tension between grace and effort, or the tension between works and faith. Can my salvation be, do I get my salvation from my works? No, but if I have given my life to Christ, will there be works? Yes. Okay, so that tension that goes in there, and this thing about denying myself, yet God loves me. I'm supposed to deny myself, but yet Jesus says that he's come that I might have life and have it to the full. Which is it? It's kind of like you kind of want to raise your hand in class, right? Hey, Jesus, which one is it? Am I supposed to deny myself, or am I supposed to live life to the full? Because I don't see any way possible that I can have a full life if I am denying myself. Am I the only one that feels that way? I don't think so. Look how Eugene Peterson puts it. We'll put the quote up on the screen. It says, "The difficult pastoral art is to encourage people to grow in excellence and to live selflessly, at one and the same time to lose the self and find the self." That's the art. That's the dance that we're in. Parents, isn't that what you're trying to do with your kids? I mean, this is what we're trying to do. Does Jesus love you? Apparently, he doesn't love the 11 o'clock people. Does Jesus love you? Does Jesus have a purpose for you? Does he have plans for you? Is he preparing a place for you? Did he go to the cross for you? Is he coming back for you? Yes. All of those things are true, yet he says, if I'm going to be his apprentice, I've got to die to myself and take up the cross and follow him. Now, Luke adds daily. Matthew didn't. Daily. So what does it mean to die to myself? What is the self that I'm supposed to die to? The self I'm supposed to die to is not my personality. Who gave you your personality? God. Who gave you your temperaments? God. This verse doesn't mean not have a personality. Some of you have interpreted this verse to mean that, because apparently you do not have a personality. So you might want to work on that. Swing by Target, pick one up on the way home. Okay, that's not what he's saying. He has created you for a purpose. He has given you, he's designed you to accomplish things. You have things that bother you that God needs you to be bothered by it, because he's got things he wants you to accomplish. And if you're not bothered by it, nothing's going to get done. So you got to have that. So what does it mean to die to yourself? What is he talking about? Well, this has just been very helpful to me over the past 4, 5, 6 weeks. Here's how John Mark Comer talks about it. 3 things to look at what it means to die to self. Now, before we talk to the 3, you have 3 primary enemies. As a follower of Jesus, you have 3 primary enemies: Satan, the world, and yourself. Satan, the world, and yourself/flesh. That's the biblical word. That's the word that Paul uses the most. So those enemies are coming at you. Those are the things that we're supposed to deny. But what does it mean to deny self? First thing that possibly it means is we need to die to deceptive ideas. We must die to deceptive ideas. Jesus calls Satan, actually calls him the Satan. So it's not even a name. The Satan. He is the father of all what? Lies. He's the great deceiver. Satan himself is not present with us today in this room. There's not anybody in this room that's that important. Okay? He doesn't have to be in the room, because we brought his lies into the room. Every lie is satanic. Everything that's not of God is satanic. It's a lie. Deceptive ideas. Deceptive ideas like money will make me happy. That sex is the only way that I'll be fulfilled. That I must be in charge. I must have those kinds of things. These big three been around for a long time. They were around before you were born. They're around while you're alive, and they're going to be around after you die. Money, sex, and power. Money, sex, and power. That's the that's where Satan lives. See, Satan cannot create anything. He is not a creator. Only God is a creator. So the only thing that Satan can do is deceive, twist, lie about. Started in the garden. That's where he began his deceptive ideas. Hey, Eve, God doesn't have your best interest at heart. Hey, Adam, you're really going to put God before your wife? Deceptive ideas, lies. And we have to get to the point where we die to deceptive ideas. Now, it's a primary way you kill a deceptive idea. What do you kill it with? The truth. Dying to self means not giving into the deceptive ideas. Second thing that we have to die to is my disordered desires. My disordered desires. Now, this is the flesh. Now, who created desires? Lisa's the only one that knows this. Who created desires? God. If it exists, God created it. God creates our desires. Who created sex? The 8 o'clock service was shocked. They were like shocked. God created it. He created it to be pleasurable. Desire's not the problem. Desire is a problem when it becomes disordered. That's when the desire is a problem. And Satan can't do anything about the desires, but he can twist them. And he can get them out of order. And when we do that, then we are living in ourself instead of dying to ourselves. Desire, there's nothing wrong with desire. I use this example. Music. I love rock and roll music. I personally, now my mom, it breaks her heart, but I love rock and roll. I listen to AC/DC when I run. I love the driving guitars and the harmony. It's just, I just like it. So if I had my choice, every worship song would sound like AC/DC, Def Leppard, or U2. I mean, that's what worship, all worship music would be that. But I don't get to decide that. There's nothing wrong with me desiring what I desire, but when I take that desire and I begin to say, well, if worship isn't this, it doesn't count. Worship must be like that or I'm out. Now what have I done? I've disordered the desire. A sexual relationship is designed to be between a husband and a wife in the covenant of marriage. Period. That is God's design. That is God's command. It's how He created it. That's not what I say. That's what God says. Anything other than that is desire disordered. And that's what we do. And Jesus said, you're going to have to die to yourself. You've got to die to deceptive ideas. You have to die to my disordered desires. And then I have to die to sinful behavior that is normalized in society. Sinful behavior that is normalized by society. And this is where it creeps in. Well, everybody's doing it. Or that ship has sailed. I hate that saying. You'd be talking to somebody and they say, well, Marty, that ship has sailed. I said, listen, I didn't get on that ship. And I'm not getting on that ship. So I don't even know what you mean by that ship has sailed. Sinful behavior that is normalized by society. The pursuit of happiness, normalized by society. How many times did Jesus, in the Beatitudes, which one is blessed are the happy? and it's not there. Now, you put these three things together. We'll put this up on the screen. You take deceptive ideas, the lies of Satan, that play to disordered desires that are normalized in sinful society. You take deceptive ideas, the lies of the evil one, that play to our own disordered desires. Nothing wrong with the desires, we just got them out of whack. That are normalized in sinful society. That is a toxic cocktail. You want to know what that is in one word? You want to know what that is in one word? Hell. That's hell. Everybody is believing deceptive ideas. They're playing into their disordered desires that is normalized in sinful society. That is the opposite of what heaven is. Because heaven is truth with proper desires in the right order in His kingdom. Which is why Jesus says when you pray, pray like this. Pray that God's will in heaven will be here. Dying to yourself. I'm going to read one verse and then we'll close this out. And this is definitely a to be continued. Galatians 2:20. Many of you know Galatians 2:20. When I read it, you'll say, oh, okay, I got it. I have been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. The life I now live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God, who loved me and gave Himself for me. Here's the Apostle Paul is writing to the church in Galatia. He says, I've been crucified with Christ. I have been crucified. What's that mean? That's past tense. If I've been crucified in Christ, then that means he's saying, listen, I've been to the cross. And I've died. I've laid it down. I've laid down my disordered desires. I've laid down the deceptive lies of the evil one. I've laid down the way that the world says to live. I've laid it down. I've been crucified with Christ. I no longer live. Paul's clearly alive. He still has a personality. He still has goals to accomplish. He has still things that God wants him to do. But he's saying, listen, it's not me that's living anymore. It's Christ that lives in me. The life I now live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave Himself for me. I'm going to paint a picture for you. And if you can, use your imagination. You're one of the 12 apostles. And you're convinced He's the Messiah. You see Him heal people. You were there when Lazarus walks out of the tomb. You were in the boat when He's walking on the water. And all of this is happening. And then Jesus is teaching. The more He teaches, the more people are intrigued. And He seems to heal people when He teaches. And that just makes the crowds get bigger and bigger and bigger. Until you get to the point where you got 5,000 men gathered. 5,000 men with their families. So there's at least 15,000 people. And Jesus is teaching and He's healing. And they're hungry. And Jesus makes the best fish tacos anybody's ever had. And everybody eats to their fill. Can you imagine the conversation the apostles had on the way after that? They're going wherever they're going to sleep that night. Can you imagine? James and John are already figuring out what part of the kingdom they're going to run. They're already trying to figure out how they're going to get Peter out of the way because Peter just messes up everything. And they're so excited. It's like, do you see all that? We got 15,000. He's just beginning. If he can calm the wind, if he can control the weather, and he can make people not be sick, and he can feed us for free. Think about the army we can build. This overthrowing the Roman government is actually going to happen. So this is the conversation around the campfire that night. And then Jesus says, hey guys, who do people say that I am? All those people, these 15,000 people, who do they say that I am? Oh, some say you're Elijah, some say you're this prophet, but you're the Messiah. Huh. Yeah. Shh, don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody. Listen. Hey guys, listen. I gotta die. Now I'm gonna raise again, but I gotta die. And all the people that you think are important, they're gonna reject me, and I gotta die. Oh yeah. Oh hey guys, listen. I need all of you to listen. If you want to be with me, you want to be my apprentice, you want to follow me, you got to die. You got to take up your cross, and you got to follow me. To be continued. Let's pray. Father, your truth, may you use it for your glory. In your name we pray. Amen.